What is up, everybody? It's Tuesday, January 27th, and we are live as we are every single week here on YouTube for Deep Look, Ultiworld's weekly podcast about the latest and greatest in Ultimate Frisbee. I'm Charlie Eisenhood, joined by Ultiworld senior editor Keith Raynor. We're back at it, Keith. The college season is here. We got the superstar number 1 versus number 2 matchup in the women's division at SBI, and we've got so much to get to today, including a bunch of semi-pro news. But Keith, College Ultimate, it feels so good to have it back.
I was playing at my Winter League. We had our first indoor Winter League game last Thursday, and the league is like, I don't know, a third college kids, mostly from Wesleyan. But you know, people were playing there. We're talking about SBI coming up. We're talking about the upcoming D3 season, and just like someone's like, "We are so back. We are so back," and that energy is in the air, my friend.
Certainly is, and we got a lot to talk about from SBI because even though we got the sort of expected matchup in the women's division, it was anything but in the men's division. So much to do. Keith, we got the Super Bowl matchup too. Seattle Seahawks will take on the New England Patriots in Santa Clara, home of the 49ers.
Show me your tickets for that matchup for the preseason, please. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, for real. I have a hard time seeing this game go any other way than Seahawks by 10 plus. Talk me out of it.
Wow. I'll give you reasons number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's the ghost, Charlie. It's Sam Darnold. Do you truly trust former New York Jets quarterback Sam Darnold in the biggest game in the world to perform well? I mean, listen, I know he's got a receiver who feels like he cannot miss, but come on, it's Sam Darnold.
I want to be a hater. In fact, I counted on him choking against the 49ers. He did not do so. And then he just hung a season-high receiving yards on the Rams defense last week.
That's true.
2 days ago. So, I mean, I hear you, but I feel like he's kind of proven it. And maybe we are all over-indexing on the one bad game from last year's playoffs after 2 years of a really, really strong play. I don't know. That's just me.
He had a really poor run through part of the season. I think if Seattle wins, I think we can just assume it's a West Coast year, right? 10 bids. Southwest men's is going off. Northwest men's will be deep. Just assume. But if the Patriots win, let the East Coast have some hope. UMass start getting excited.
You know what? Let's see what happens. It's going to be fun. 2 weeks to the Super Bowl. Before we get into SBI, it's time for our trivia question of the week.
So a little spoiler alert for SBI in this week's trivia. Cal Poly SLO in the men's division failing to reach the final at SBI. Charlie, this week's trivia question: when's the last time SLO didn't make the SBI men's final? Now, let me give you a couple of caveats because there are 2 oddities. There's 1 year in which they didn't have the tournament. We won't count that. Then there's another year in which they didn't complete bracket play. I want to say that's 2022, 2023, something like that. They didn't complete bracket play. They did like a power pools.
Bad weather situation.
Right. SLO went undefeated in the power pool, so you could still argue that they won the tournament, but they didn't reach the final per se. But
and obviously they didn't have the tournament in 2021. Yeah.
Right. So removing those, Charlie, the last time that SLO didn't make the finals in the men's division of SBI, take a second, think back, file back through your years of we're almost in like a decade of SLO being an elite team. I mean, they were just like a regionals team not that long ago, but I guess it was that long ago now. Man, I'm getting old. But yeah, think about that for a little bit. See, it's a chat. You can come up with what your ideas may be for the last time SLO didn't make the finals in the men's division. I want to tell everybody about our friends over at Kiko Socks. Now, this week's episode of Deep Look is presented by Kiko Socks. Now, their team sales event is going on right now. So if you're a college or high school team, you could save 40% on Kiko socks. There's no minimums on team orders if they're placed before February 15th. So you got a couple weeks left to take advantage of that. You can contact Kiko Socks. That's KIKKO at kikosocks.com, or just visit kikosocks.com/teams for more information on how to take advantage of that deal. All right, Charlie. Any thoughts?
All right, Keith. Well, I'm thinking back through the history books, and I'm remembering that, once upon a time, SLO was not the top team in the Southwest. Stanford was the top team for a couple years there, pre-pandemic. And of course, we had the epic Gabe Hernandez season to win the regional final. And that was like 2018. So Stanford was probably the best team 2018, 2017 range. So the question that I'm having in my mind is, did SLO, because SLO has basically been really good since then. And I can't remember any time since COVID that they've missed. So I'm trying to think to myself, like, who would have taken them out in 2017? That's going to be my guess, but it's a little too far back for me to remember. But I will guess 2017 is the last time they missed. Damn it.
You reasoned your way through that very well. You just arrived at the wrong year, Charlie. You are right about Stanford. Stanford is the team that got the better of them. This was one of those years in which Stanford beat Cal Poly SLO in the regional final to take the lone bid from the Southwest. The year was 2019. Cal Poly SLO, last time that they failed to reach this tournament, and of course, the team that knocked them out in semifinals was Stanford. So it's all coming around full circle for them.
It is. It certainly is. Well, let's dive into it. I want to start on the women's side because we had the stronger field and the immediate rematch of the national championship game from a year ago. And right off the top, we get this UBC Carleton game in the finals of a tournament. Get used to it, Keith, because these teams look a cut above. And it's no surprise considering the rosters that they bring back, the continuity that these teams have, the unbelievable talent on these rosters. And they pretty much delivered on all fronts. It's January, so you don't expect perfect ultimate from a college team. But there were points where the level of play was incredibly high. And ultimately, Carleton comes out on top over UBC. UBC clawed back from a pretty big deficit. They were down 8-3 at one point and came all the way back to tie it up. But Carleton goes on to a couple late breaks and closes it out. So I'm just curious to get your immediate takeaways as we take a look at the bracket.
Let me immediately mea culpa that it was 2018. Sorry, the chat is roundly the Southwest heavy chat right now is making sure that I read the digit correctly. It is 2018, not 2019. That's slow.
Sadly, I'm still wrong.
You're still wrong, but just replace one digit there. Now this game itself, like it looked like it was going to be a runaway. It looked like Carleton was just going to control this game with fantastic defense and Shagal Gelfand and Chloe Hakimi just dealing on the other end. But really impressive for UBC to make a run and to do so with Mika Kurahashi on the sideline, with them, I think, playing maybe a little bit more of an open roster, or at least the focus of their attack was not necessarily through their biggest name players. So, exploring the depth of the roster a bit, which you expect to see at this time of year. Impressive for them to bring it back and get as close as 10s once again. But you're totally right that I think the biggest takeaway really is that these two teams look just a full cut above everybody else in the field. It was really not close, even with these teams. These teams are there in midseason form, and everybody else looks like they're just pulling out of the garage. Really, really impressive level of play. And our reporter Kiana who was on site there was saying, it felt like a big game. Like the teams were up for it. You could tell that it was meaningful, and to get that kind of game in January, like that is a huge boon for teams that are trying to achieve the feats that UBC and Carleton are. So I'm looking forward. I hope that we get this matchup again in the regular season and into the postseason, because we could have the makings of a true classic head-to-head.
I mean, look at these scoreline, like the semi scorelines. Both teams win over Santa Cruz and Stanford. Great teams. 13-4. I mean, that is the differential right now. I mean, it is just another level. Carleton beats Oregon Fugue 13-1 in quarters. Now, Oregon will maybe a little bit. We heard about some potential illness this week, a couple players missing. So I don't think you want to overly read into that particular result. But obviously, it is just that Oregon is not in this tier. Like, I think that is very clear after SBI. These teams are in a tier by themselves, and we kind of knew that. The question I have for you, Keith, is with the addition of Chloe Hakimi, who was as good as advertised. I mean, the backhand break around is just absolutely massacring immediately at the college level. Are they the favorite? Like, it's an early season win. It doesn't mean that much. Are they the favorite? Considering, I will note that Mika Kurahashi, who was unstoppable all tournament, missed about half of this game, maybe 3/4 of this game after getting a little knock. So it didn't play, the second half. And despite that, UBC made a run.
Yeah, I think you've got to paint Carleton as the favorite right now. I mean, if you look at their team, what do they have? Maybe they might have 2 of the 5 best players in the division, 3 of the best 10 or 15 players in the division, and like 12 of the best 100 players in the division. A lot of that you could probably rinse and repeat about UBC, but I feel like the math is just slightly favoring Carleton. Now it's close enough that, just the RNG, as it were, of a day of play for college kids, the coaching, the path, all those things, all these different environmental factors could tilt the scales one way or the other. I certainly don't think Carleton wins every time that these two teams play, but I think you got to make them the slight favorite. Hakimi looked exceptional, and we kind of end up burying, because of the star power of Chagall Gelfand and Chloe Hakimi, we end up burying how good the rest of this roster is. They've still got Kylie McRoy and Eliza Barton. Helen Burris was taking on a big role. Opal Burris is still there. Like, they
Naomi
have
Fina.
Naomi. Yeah. I mean, Fina kind of gets into that star power group. Melba Henley looks like
you haven't
she's
said her
taking
name,
a step forward. Yeah. I mean, I said she was probably one of the best 10 or 15 players in the division, but you're right, I didn't say her name. I think that it's easy to look at the stars, but I mean, this team is a complete package.
I mean, you can see as we're rolling the tape here, if you're watching with us on YouTube, Carleton controlled this first half. UBC had some misfires, a couple of mistake throws. Carleton was really good at taking advantage of the mistakes and putting them into the end zone. So they go up 8-3 early in the second half. And then, some pressure starts to dial up. And honestly, it's coming from the depth of this UBC team and some of their new players, who are not talked about to the same extent as what Carleton has brought in. And I think for good reason. But part of that maybe is like a little bit of a Canadian versus USA bias. We know the USA players a lot more. They play at HSNI. We have a lot more years of kind of scouting these teams at YCC. The Canadian strong youth players, maybe we really only see when they're playing at Junior Worlds. So don't sleep on the UBC rookies. And they claw back into this game.
Last year, they had Rookie of the Year candidates that, were people talking about LSF before the year? Not like that. So, do not underestimate UBC's recruiting pipeline.
So you see UBC slowly marching back in the game. Carleton with a just a poor little, tried to push pass, didn't really get any spin on it, just puts it into the ground. And interesting yellow card there. Any thoughts on that yellow for Chagall?
I join our Discord, which if you weren't hanging out in the live Ultimate channel on our Discord during this tournament, you were missing out. Most people pretty against giving Chagall the card there, and in fact, blame the offensive player for getting to the spot second. I'm with that.
Inside forehand miss there from UBC, had a chance to tie it at 11 and force Universe, and instead Carleton goes the other way and closes it out 12-10. So what a start to the season. I look at the numbers there for Chagall Gelfand. 3 goals, 4 assists, 2 blocks. Hakimi, fantastic as well with 3 assists, 2 blocks, and a goal. And, depth showing up, though, for UBC. It's going to be a fantastic run for these two teams through this season, and I'm sure we're going to see them play again before the end of the year. Elsewhere, Keith, who impressed? Feels like Stanford looking kind of back. 10-6 win over Colorado in quarters.
Yeah, Stanford, nice. I talked about how they might actually start the season off a little slow because they are so focused on development throughout much of the year. But they make a run to quarters. They beat a Colorado team that has a lot of talent, but is still kind of putting the pieces together. And the other semifinalist, Santa Cruz, also really impressive. They had probably one of the stronger tournaments altogether, I would say, of any team. Rachel Chang, they're looking extremely dangerous, but this team has some other real contributors: Ruby Golston, Viola Desley, Kai Agueros. Like this is a really solid and now experienced group after turns at nationals. So Santa Cruz, their only loss was getting blown out by UBC, but that seems to like that just you could be a semifinalist team and get blown out by UBC. That seems to be
That's right.
On the table these days. So
Yes.
2-3 goal wins over Stanford. I mean, that also goes to show you that there's levels to this. I mean, nobody came within 3 goals of Santa Cruz, or the closest anybody got was 3 goals, I should say, and they got demolished by UBC. So that still is my biggest takeaway. But the West Coast, I was really barking for Cal Poly SLO to begin a breakout season, and that certainly didn't happen. I've been high on Oregon. There's some, I guess you could say, excuses built into there. There's some explanations for their performance. I do think that the West Coast is going to prove to be a really strong group, but this was not necessarily the most impressive showing down the line.
The Southwest has to feel pretty okay, though, right? Stanford gets a 4-goal win over a strong South Central team. Santa Cruz whoops up on Victoria, nearly max points territory. Hard to say now, but the Southwest may be doing a little bit better when you think about the bid picture from this early season tournament than we maybe expected coming in, especially considering how strong we think the Northwest is.
Yeah, being able to beat up on BYU and Oregon, like the algorithm doesn't care whether or not Trout Wainwright was playing. That Oregon win those Oregon results could end up looking really good and floating the Southwest in some ways later on in the year. Having these big margins against a team that I think should end up being pretty competitive, losing 13-9 to UC San Diego and 13-3 to UC Santa Cruz, that's going to be a big benefit for the Southwest's chances.
For sure, and it's maybe a painful situation for Oregon with a kind of a brutal weekend overall. I mean, do you give them a pass, or is it already time to slam the alarm bells?
Sad to say, but I think it's somewhere between the two. I'm still overall optimistic about their ability to be kind of a semis quality team at the end of the year, but you can't see a team play this way and not ding them, because even with the players they were missing, even with the players they had sick, like this team has way too much talent to fold that easily. So I think we'll see them play better, but you gotta see their ceiling a little lower than we did before this tournament.
All right. Anything else on the women's division, or should we move over to the men's side?
I'm still lamenting honestly, this is a terrible picks weekend for me. I feel like I know I got some stuff right in the men's division, but I had SLO doing well. I did like UVic coming in. I thought BYU was going to be strong. I didn't see UCLA coming. I mean, this was not a great showing for me. So altogether, tough start to the season for your boy, but we'll get back at it.
Any other thoughts on Santa Cruz? Rachel Chang continuing to sling it for UCSC.
Yeah, and they're more involved, more assertive, more able to use their legs. I mean, they're a dangerous cutter. A couple of years with Fury will do that to you. They're going to be pushing for All-American undoubtedly and have a big role for the Santa Cruz team. But I think seeing how the rest of the roster develops around them is going to be really the key. And they have some players who are really strong, but can they continue to play like that level when they're up against top competition with teams with big time club player names? Is trying to shoot for the moon and break into the 1-2s. That's probably beyond their reach. But after that, they've got to feel good that they can compete with basically anybody. But you got to deliver on that promise.
I mean, it's pretty nice to go with your only loss coming to UBC. And they probably are the front runners in the Southwest as it stands.
Yeah, I mean, Stanford has so much pedigree. It's like I could see making the argument for Stanford still, but I think if I had to pick today, I'd pick Santa Cruz. I don't know. Maybe I don't say that with a lot of conviction.
I mean, Stanford looked pretty good for this point in the season, considering that some years, even when they end up being a quarters or even semis team at nationals, they can look a little out of sorts at Santa Barbara. I mean, having Esther Filipek back is huge. They're going to be a very good team, so it should be a fun watch in the Southwest. All right, let's move to the men's division, and I just want to see it right away. Let's see how the finals ended. By the way, I don't think anybody saw UVic, Utah as your final, coming in 15th and 22nd in the rankings. And let's watch how this game ended, okay? Or maybe we're going to get the full recap. Are we going to get the full recap? We're about to find out. Okay, yes, we are.
Surprise.
Let's watch the finals here. And Keith, I'll just cue you up. UVic gets this win. And we were talking last week on the pod that maybe they were a little bit underranked coming into the year. Feels like that's clearly true after what they did this weekend.
Yeah, and I heard from some of our Canadian friends that the UVic team also has some good pickups that we just are not going to know because they're playing in Canada. Ricky Tran has like multiple years with Furious, and I guess is playing with UVic this year. That was news to me. But that's a nice pickup. So I think that this team suddenly has a boost of experience. They haven't been to nationals as a group yet, but they look the part right now. It still is early days, but very impressive showing from them, and a strong debut for a roster that I don't think we really had the full sense of the scope of their talent.
Yeah, I mean, Max Penanuzzo, who launched that hammer that we just saw right there. Beautiful stuff. He was fantastic.
Are you familiar?
I mean,
are you familiar with his nickname?
He looks
Charlie?
All-American level right away. Am I familiar with
his
game?
Do you know what the people call Max Penanuzzo in the Discord?
Max Pepperoni, of course I do.
This. Okay.
That's been around, Keith. Come on. But I mean, he had a great U24s this past cycle. And just so much confidence to throw the over the tops, hit a ton of those hammers all weekend long. Just great stuff. But it's more than him. I mean, they looked a lot deeper than I anticipated.
Yeah, I really think that like they seem, with all the returners that they have plus the additions, they feel like a big threat to be kind of a surprise team. What we've seen from like a Penn State or a Western Washington in the past. You see Pepperoni getting in someone's face a little bit there.
Spicy pepperoni right there. I heard
this game was a little contentious. I think there were some calls earlier in the game that might have gotten people a little heated.
Hitting the celly on the really nice throw there out to space with the forehand. Then the takeaway at the cone for UVic and just immediately to the cone and an absolute jack the other way, Keith. There was some pretty good hucking in this game.
If you're going to have pepperoni on your team, you might as well have some Schmeat too, right? Like, I mean, that is pure Schmeat.
All right, here it is.
I hate to be that guy, but that was definitely a travel.
Yeah, hugely travel. 12-10, Victoria pulling. Big pull. Lands at the back line. Terrible decision. Lay out Callahan. GG. Oh, man. What a way to close out a win to start your college season. I mean, when has UVic even made like the finals of a tournament of relevance? I don't remember. I don't think it's ever happened. So, it's one thing for them to make semis. The win over Santa Cruz, really impressive. I mean, I think that's their best win of the weekend, and they go on to win the whole thing.
Yeah, and shout out to Utah, who's coming off back-to-back universe games in the rounds prior. That's a bet of your own making, but still hanging tough all the way through with UVic. But maybe that caught up to them on that last play, because that's nightmare fuel for anybody who catches the ball.
Yeah, I mean, that's tough. If you're not used to those pressure spots, you're used to being able to get those centering passes off easily. And there was like a slight hesitation before the throw too. Like, I think if the throw goes up quickly and with some pace, it wouldn't have been a problem, but that's got to be a pump fake in that spot. And, it is what it is. It was going to be a long shot for Utah to win that game anyway, down 12-10. Yeah, a tough way to go out. Okay, Keith, I got to ask you, where is UVic in your tier list right now? Because we don't really have the country's top teams in this field. And so,
Well, we thought we had one.
There's no Colorado. Right. But that's kind of why I asked, because I'm curious where you locate these teams relatively in the power rankings right now. I mean, is UVic a top 10 team? Or do you think that everybody's a little shaky and we need to downgrade some of the other teams that were at this tournament?
I think UVic is going to be probably just outside the top 10, somewhere between 10 and 15, which kind of make you a tier 3, tier 4 team, depending on how you slice up the tops. But, it's hard to imagine a team that, hasn't even made nationals to suddenly burst into semifinals contention without absolute player of the year candidate quality players somehow appearing onto the roster. So I do think this is a great showing for them. And I think being one of the top 15 teams in the country is pretty great for UVic. I think they can compete at nationals. I think that they could qualify and make it to quarters. I think all that's achievable. But I'm not going to get too far out over my skis yet when we haven't even seen, the teams that are they're competing with, your Penn States, your Texases, your Georgia Techs. We have Western Washington and Oregon State. They played at PacCon, but not really going to tell us a lot yet. So there's a lot of teams we've yet to see. So I don't want to jump the gun with UVic, but you got to give them their credit for playing a really strong weekend. There's nothing about this win that looked fake.
I do feel like ultimately Santa Cruz is probably the best team at the tournament. I mean, obviously UVic beat them heads up. That is what it is. I think it wouldn't be crazy. I mean, Victoria is going to go ahead of Santa Cruz in the power rankings. It's power rankings. Santa Cruz having the better season still feels like the more likely outcome. But yeah, for me, you move UVic up to that 11 to 14 range. Santa Cruz dips just a little bit. BYU and Cal Poly SLO, though, they gotta drop pretty big. I mean, SLO is just not deep enough, Keith, to be anywhere close to justifying the number 6 preseason ranking that they had.
Oh, they looked kind of justified for a little bit there. They took pretty good care of BYU. You can see kind of their top end talent, how they can just flex that over teams when they have Alex Nelson and Anton Orm and Max Gade kind of anchoring the team. But yeah, kind of fell apart, and that's a concerning thing to see this early in the year for a team with this kind of potential. A team that had these kinds of struggles last year of feeling like they didn't quite have the depth, and you wonder if that's going to come into play late in a weekend when it matters, especially losing to an in-region team. I mean, we got to talk a little about the Stanford team that was not really on the radar, but now that we've seen some of the pickups, seen the roster a little bit, you got to put them into that Southwest conversation.
Well, the only thing I'll say before we talk Stanford is that, I mean, what you just said about SLO, that you need to be worried about them deeper into a weekend. Well, I mean, they literally went 4-0 to start the tournament and then went 0-3 on Sunday. losing close games admittedly to Stanford, UBC, and Washington. So, to me, having close games against good to very good teams is typically a sign that your D line is not able to kind of like get that separation and get those breaks. And that's what happens with teams that aren't that deep. And it's going to be a challenge for SLO, which I think has been a team that has generally historically been a pretty deep team. That's maybe been more deep than top heavy, to kind of have to switch gears and be like, hey, we need our top 2-3 guys to run this team. And there's a mechanism. It's just that that's not the style that this team has played in the past. I think they're going to have to find that if they want to be as successful as they can be, because they do have a tremendous top end, as good as anybody.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely want to keep an eye on how they look at their next tournament. But I think one of the biggest takeaways here from the tournament as a whole is we still are. This confirms my priors about the Northwest and reinforces them on the Southwest. It's going to be tough. Regionals is going to be a minefield. I will be surprised if the teams that earn the bids in these regions, of which there could be many between these two regions, if they are the teams that ultimately claim the bids. And there are just so many tough challengers along the way. And, you look at the Northwest, and if you even stack up Oregon and Oregon State as ahead of the pack, which maybe you can't really do that anymore, you're still dealing with UVic, Utah, UBC, Utah Valley, Washington, Western Washington. Like, this is deep. And now that you're adding Stanford into the conversation in the Southwest too, it's going to be a glut of good teams.
Yes. Let's talk about Stanford. They go 3-4. They split with Utah. They lose the game in the bracket, but they beat them in pool play 13-11. They obviously get the big win over SLO. Feels like, boy, it's been a long time since Stanford beat SLO. And they get two sizable losses to Santa Cruz. I think it's clear that Santa Cruz is currently the best team in the Southwest. But Stanford, punchy enough, maybe? Like, if there's a second bid, could they be knocking on the door of a national spot this year? It's possible, Keith.
It is. And they may not have to settle for a second bid. I mean, they may make this a 3-team conversation. Alexander Belfiore has been one of the best players in the region for a number of years now. They had some really strong pickups from what I understand. Fritz Remus was somebody who people were talking about after the weekend. So they've added some good players, and that's what you need. You have a big star, I think, in Belfiore, someone who could be a player who carries a team. And then you got the support pieces. Like, that is what you need, I think, to potentially earn a bid for the region and to compete to defend it by the time that they get there. So UCLA, Cal, will they be in the mix here as we get down the stretch? That's unclear, but I think you can expect SLO, Santa Cruz, and Stanford to all be contending for bids based on what we saw at SPI.
All right. What are your thoughts on Utah? They make the final, wins over BYU, Cal, UBC, and Stanford. They drop that other game to Stanford, and they lose to Santa Cruz and UVic, of course, in the final. It feels to me like the constituent parts of a nationals team are here. I think they're going to have to figure out how to coalesce and play like a little bit more of a disciplined game if they want to take that step, especially in a very, very crowded region. But, with Will Selfridge and company, like, they definitely have the pieces, but it's hard to go from a team that like isn't really a nationals team to kind of playing with that level of consistency that's required unless you like really have an overwhelming talent advantage, which they don't.
Are you sure you want to say they're not a nationals team after they make quarters last year?
I hear you. I just feel like it's still a little uneven watching them play.
Yes. Well, let's not forget that they were pretty mediocre in the regular season last year. I mean, we kind of ran them off by the time that the postseason rolled around, and they had earned it. Like, if you looked at their resume, it was hard to justify being excited about them. So obviously they're off to a better start now. And this is the one place I get to take a victory lap, which was taking Utah to make the final, which they delivered on. So I appreciate it. But I think that, yeah, I do think you're going to see this team try and work on reset systems and discipline and such. But, you know,
They can juice
I
it
think
though.
ultimately,
They got some great
yeah,
huckers.
they're gonna be in the vein of an Oregon State. Right? They're gonna take their
Sure.
shots. They're gonna live and die on athleticism and deep game and playmaking. And sometimes that's gonna be enough to overwhelm teams, and sometimes they'll find just enough discipline to get by when they get into a rut. But I also think that's gonna lead to inconsistency. I would be surprised if you don't see this team lean on that identity throughout the year.
Yeah, I mean they definitely feel like they can play up. I mean, I think they have talent to be. I don't know if I want to say a top 10 team in the country, but right at the cusp.
I think they could beat
They have
a
the
top 10
talent.
team.
Yes, yes. In any given game, I agree with that. Um. Anyway, a super interesting SBI. I mean, truly not at all to expectations, and a kind of exciting start to the 2026 season, Keith.
I'm looking forward to the next chapter because we're already up to our next tournament filled to the brim with teams that are hoping to replicate the kind of miracle runs we saw at SBI. Want to avoid being the team that people are talking about choking. Probably don't want to throw the tournament losing Callahan. I think everybody's trying to avoid that too. But with warm up coming around the corner, I mean, like we said at the beginning of the show, I mean, we're so back. We feel so back right now.
We are so back, Keith. And a ton of teams will make their 2026 season debuts this weekend at Florida Warm Up, which will also be carried live on ultiworld.com. More to come on that and more, including a bunch of semi-pro news on the other side of this break. Stay with us. Deep Look continues after this. Welcome back to Deep Look. Don't mess the best of SBI highlights up on our YouTube channel right now, as well as the finals recap in the women's division. Men's finals recap will be up later today, maybe early tomorrow. So check all of that out. Keith, we've got some semi-pro small ball to get to. We've got a bunch of news coming out of the pro leagues. Take it away.
Oh, well, the first bit of news is not exactly breaking news per se, but we did finally get some reporting on what's been going on in Oregon with the semi-pro teams. The owner of the prior franchises in the Western Ultimate League and the UFA, the Nitro and the Onyx, their owner is now facing federal fraud charges amidst some other criminal charges. It is a kind of a wild situation, but unfortunately, we have seen a couple of these types of financial issues. I'd say more in the early days of the UFA, but especially I think with the pandemic and the government funding that was being issued there, we've seen. I'm sure people have heard about fraud in the news, and Ultimate was not immune from those same problems.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably not right to comp this to other financial challenges in, early semi-pro teams because at least as we know of, there hasn't been outright fraud. Um, but yeah, over $200,000 alleged to be sort of stolen from the various small business loans that were coming out from the government during the kind of post-COVID times. And the federal government alleging that Joel Caswell, the former owner of these franchises, took this money out, kind of showing fake receipts, fake business bank accounts, took that money, took a big chunk of it, like a third of it, put it into the LLC that owned the Nitro and Onyx, and then used at least some of that money to reserve the really spectacular, honestly, soccer stadium in Portland where the MLS and NWSL teams play for the Ultimate games. Obviously, a venue of this scale is just completely inappropriate for Ultimate, and I guess still owes six figures in unpaid debts. They're probably never going to see that money to the stadium for the rentals for that season. And then, while he was indicted for this fraud charge and various other things like, I don't know, wire fraud, conspiracy, all these various charges that crop up in these types of situations, he got arrested separately for a drive-by shooting at his ex-girlfriend's house, where he is alleged to have shot at her house. So, he's no longer involved at all in the new pro teams in Oregon. But the issues from these early years have kind of held Oregon Pro Ultimate back, it seems. When the Nitro were initially announced, you had half of Rhino or more on the roster, and then slowly it got worse and worse. Then nobody was really playing at all, and still we're seeing these Oregon area teams really struggling, particularly on the UFA side, where they've been one of the bottom feeders in the league, despite the fact that they have the club champions of 2024. So crazy story. This has been in the news for over a year, but there's been a lot of back and forth, and shout out to the great reporting on the website, and just really appreciate the efforts from Ted Shorak to pull this piece together. You can check out the whole thing on ultiworld.com.
Yeah, excellent reporting. Definitely worth a read.
What's next, Keith?
We have gotten the first PUL schedule coming out. So we're starting to get more information here as we get closer to the start of both the PUL and Western Ultimate Leagues. But the PUL schedule starting to get us excited about the season coming up in the beginning of April. We'll see things kick off. This is actually the first time that I've gotten a chance to see the full schedule myself. So
I think they just dropped it literally today.
Big matchups. There you go.
Yeah, so season kicks off with Philly at Nashville and Raleigh at Austin. We'll get the
no history DC,
there. We'll get a great DC Raleigh matchup week 2. Indy at Milwaukee, and on it goes. So Raleigh and DC traveling to Austin, as is the Atlanta Soul. And then Austin will go on the road to Nashville, Minnesota, Milwaukee. That'll be a doubleheader weekend at the end of the season for Austin, the Minnesota-Milwaukee duo. So, yeah, I mean, you kind of have to go team by team to kind of look at schedules.
Yeah, but
looks like New York's got a pretty tough schedule this season.
Yeah, my eyes are drawn because in our bold prediction show, I said that the Red are going to make a run, and this is a very favorable schedule for the Indy Red. They play at home against Philly, against New York at home for both of those, their toughest matchups of the year. They travel to the Strike and Milwaukee twice. So no having to travel to DC or Raleigh or something like that. They get probably their two strongest opponents at home. I think this is a very favorable schedule for my optimistic take on the Indy Red this season.
They also get the Atlanta Soul at home in week 10. So, yeah, great to see schedule up. And we'll be looking forward to talking more about the PUL next week when we have an interview with the new commissioner, So we will discuss more then as we get a chance to kind of digest the schedule, which came out maybe 45 minutes before our show started. Anything else, Keith? Oh, I know we got one more thing to talk about. Big UFA
Yeah,
news earlier today.
Why don't you lead this one? I know you're excited.
Well, I mean, I think you're just an out of nowhere signing for the Minnesota Wind Chill as Lucas Ambrose and Noah Kuhlman sign up for the team. I mean, these are literally first team all defense players from the last couple of seasons. They do not live in Minnesota. They will be traveling to, I'm told, 8 or 9 games. They'll be flown to games, and they will also travel to about 3 practice weekends. So the Wind Chill not messing around, Keith, and maybe we could call it tripling down on incredible defense. These two guys, I think if you named just off the top of your head who are, top 10 defenders in the league, you're definitely going to get to both of these names probably well before you get to number 10 on the list.
I agree with that. And a big surprise, honestly, the only team I've seen signing everybody is Indy. So maybe Minnesota was like, oh snap, Indy's really not playing around. We better sign some people. We better make some news. Make some moves. Everybody's scared of the Alley Cats right now. And Minnesota is the Central. Is the Central way up right now?
Is it kind of heating up? I think the Minnesota Indy battle could be really interesting. I'm pretty skeptical we're going to see much else going on in this division, but we'll see what Chicago brings to the table. I have to say, if there was any thought that maybe Indy was going to be the early, favorite in the Central, no. Minnesota just put the kibosh on that with these signings. I mean, these guys are fantastic, top 25 players in the league, and they can probably play them either way. But obviously, when you need to go get a block, these are ultra premium players to have on your D line.
Yeah, but they were playing in Colorado. How do you think they're going to handle that that wind that's in the Minnesota name and seems to follow them whenever they play their biggest games? I hope they've been brushing up on their windy throws, because we've seen the Wind Chill have to compete in some tough conditions down the stretch in back-to-back seasons.
Let me just give you some notes real quick, because I think it's worth kind of emphasizing. Lucas Ambrose led the UFA in blocks in 23 and 24, and then Kuhlman led the league in 25. Ambrose was the Defense Player of the Year in 2024. He was a runner-up for MVP. He was first team All-UFA. Noah Kuhlman was first team All-Defense last season. He also, and I did not know this, first player since at least 2019 to have 20 goals, 20 assists, and 20 blocks in a single season, coming off his 2025 year. So these are pretty monster signings, arguably the biggest of the offseason so far, even bigger than what Indy has done.
What's the Oregon
and making other teams worse? Like, that's the other thing, like directly hurting not divisional teams, but picking off pieces from the West.
Yeah, well, the Minnesota is definitely going to be climbing the power rankings with this move.
Do you like the hashtag legitimacy of this? Guys getting signed from other cities. We've seen a little bit of this.
When you said that, I had to go check the graphic because I thought it might actually say hashtag legitimacy on it, which I would have just expired in my chair mid-show. Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't feel any different than any other UFA season to me. We always see a couple of travel players. We've seen enough of it in club, but not exactly free agent market here.
Hey, this is the kind of stuff that creates that. Like,
I need trades, Charlie.
Minnesota's kicking everybody's ass right now in terms of running a franchise, getting fans to games, putting together a good spectator product, and now going out and walking the walk by signing great players and really pushing to win a championship.
All right, well, put me down for a trades episode mid UFA season.
There we go. That'd be huge. There's nothing stopping them, right? Like, we could see trades.
We're just gonna have to hypothetically, because it ain't happening. some two teams should just make a trade, like just to gin up some interest. If you're two off the beaten path teams, like let's see two of the Texas teams. Well, there only are two now, I think. Right? So make a little swapski.
Just mix it up.
Yeah.
All right, Keith. Let's get ready for Florida warm up. It's my number one college tournament of the season, and it's coming up this weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's now in Orlando, Florida. And look, Keith, I mean, it's a massive tournament. We're starting to get a real women's division coming together. I mean, it's nothing like SBI, but we are seeing the seeds, perhaps, of warm up becoming a strong contender for early women's tournament as well. And something like 40 plus teams deep in the men's division with heavy hitters all the way down to the Florida teams.
Hey, I remember I coached for the Southeast for a number of years. I remember the glory days of Florida Winter Classic, which could attract, I remember Ohio State and Dartmouth and Kansas coming down. Like, it is possible. Teams want to get out of the cold. Maybe we'll see the women's division of Florida warm up grow and become kind of an early season East Coast centerpiece in the calendar.
I won't be surprised. It's often pretty cold at Queen City.
It helps.
Although it's going to be kind of cold in Orlando this week.
Yeah, we're unfortunate this week. It helped when the Southeast had a stronger national profile, but that would definitely help reassert Florida as a place to play.
All right, Keith, I think you pulled together a list of the top Florida warm-up games to watch. We've also got our live streaming schedule to take a look at. Where do you want to start?
Why don't we talk about some of the best games, Charlie? Well, you and I both kind of went through a list to find what we thought were some of the best matchups. Now, for those who haven't heard before, Florida warm-up has an unusual format that Charlie and I have kind of gushed about how much we like, which is a match play format. So the matchups are basically just prearranged. I think roughly the idea is to put teams into buckets and then mostly have them play against teams from within their tier so that you're getting competitive games. And then have one or two games that straddle the tiers where maybe you could play up to a stronger competition or try and fend off some competition from below you trying to compete with your team. And then they take the teams with the best records, run the algorithm for them, and fill out the bracket that way. So every point matters as far as your ability to make it into this bracket. I think really in the early days of this, Charlie, right? They didn't even have a bracket, and people were like, "Okay, we need some finals play. We need some elimination games." But now we have this kind of hybrid format that I think is a lot of fun.
It's great because you got to win games. They kind of sort of power match the schedule, not completely, but there's good teams that missed the bracket.
Could you do it now when we don't even know how good any of these teams are?
I mean, sure, I get your point. I think the thing is, let's take a notable example. Ave Maria, D3 team. They get BYU, Texas, Virginia Tech, Brown, and Georgia. Good luck. But, the top teams usually get some easy games and then some tough games. And it just kind of depends. Like some teams get a more favorable schedule and they get to make the bracket as a result. And some good team gets a hard schedule and misses the bracket. And it's part of the fun. It's definitely different than your typical pool play into pre-quarters.
Yeah, and it does give us a chance to know like so much of the tournament going into, and it's a huge tournament. So Charlie and I went through it and looked at the games we thought from this pre-FAD schedule looked like they might be the most compelling. We're going to try and get it down to our top 10 list. What do you think, Charlie?
Let's go. Kick us off.
Do you have an A1 game here? Is there a game that you think is the game to watch?
No. I think that those games are going to come in the bracket. I don't necessarily think we have like a completely unmissable game. I understand that. I'm just saying that we don't have the like mega game. I think if BYU is really good, which I don't think they are, I think they're a solid team. When BYU is really good, we usually get some unbelievable games. Um, Probably the one that I'm most excited to watch is Pitt, Michigan.
A good choice. There's a lot of high hopes for this Michigan team. We know that Pitt has some great recruits, so curious to see what they look like. And I totally agree with you. BYU, they typically get one of the hardest schedules. They get the most top teams on their schedule, and so when they're really good, it makes for a bunch of really good matchups, just all against BYU. But that provides a great measuring stick because they play at SBI. It gives us a bunch of connectivity. It's great. Um, if they're gonna play at the level that they played at SBI, having to travel cross country for back to back weekends, that maybe it won't be so great. They get Texas and Georgia Tech and Carleton, so their ability to play up, I think, would really change things. I think Wash U also has a really strong schedule. They play Vermont, they play Georgia Tech. I think they have another tough game too. So that's another one that I think could be an interesting kind of measuring stick team. I think that the game that I'm most excited about, I guess I'm still not ready to give up on BYU after SBI, so I think I'd say Texas BYU. I want to see what this Texas team looks like. Xavier Fusat's back. They're bringing in strong new players as well. They've got a lot of returners, but we know BYU can really fire up. They may have a chip on their shoulder after last weekend, so I think that's probably the number one matchup for me is Texas and BYU.
I think the team that I'm most excited to watch this weekend is Georgia Tech. Michael Poe of the U24 national team popping up on the roster, adding to an already formidable top end. I mean, Georgia Tech, Keith, I'm feeling like this might be top 10 team in the country. Like, this is not going to be we just missed out on nationals type team this year. No way.
Yeah, Michael Poe's a nasty ad. We did not know about that coming into the season, and I think they would have been closer to the 10 mark in our preseason power rankings if we knew that. But big pickup for Tech, and excited to see his debut. I hope he's going to get a chance to play it at warm up because I agree with you. I think that's probably the team I'm the most excited to watch. Do you think, Charlie, that they should the TDs have given us UMass and Carleton? I kind of feel like they should have just maybe they asked the teams, do you want to do that? But I'm sure that those teams would have loved to get extra reps against each other during the regular season. I'm a little surprised we didn't get UMass and Carleton.
Yeah, it does feel like normally we see a bit more of the strongest teams playing each other in match play than we have this year. I mean, some of that just depends on who the top teams are, but yeah, I hear you. I just think there's a great chance we're going to see that matchup in semis or finals. So I'm not stressed out about it.
I'm not stressed, but like I wouldn't have been upset if we had gotten both. I don't mind them playing twice in the weekend. As it stands, though, I think like UMass doesn't. The problem is that what that leaves is I think UMass without a super compelling opponent. They play Pitt, Minnesota, Texas A&M, Auburn, and Georgetown. And would you be shocked if they walked through those 5 games? Like I wouldn't. I would love to have a big marquee UMass matchup, and I guess the most compelling among those is probably Pitt. But I would probably put that in my list of the 10 best games. But I'm not like, wow, this is going to be a real test for UMass.
Well, and look at Brown's schedule. I mean, I know Brown is not the top tier team that they have been historically right now, but they're going to be solid team. They're probably a nationals team. They get Illinois, Oklahoma Christian, Cornell, Ave Maria, Tulane. Like they should go 5-0. Like they don't really get a tough test.
Yeah,
we'll see how Tulane is this year.
Is there some element of like the West Coast is so strong that it's pushing down some of these other teams that usually fill out this tournament and make it feel like there's a lot of top end there? Where's maybe going to see Vermont or Pitt like not quite be at the level that they've been the past few years. Well, Pitt, that varies. Your mileage varies there. Georgia, another team that has been elite at points, but could be taking a step back this year. Maybe without those teams being at the top end, it feels a little Carleton and UMass and everybody else in a way that maybe it doesn't always.
I think we need to put Georgia Tech in the conversation in that like top end discussion. But you make a good point. Like,
I want to make them
where
prove it.
is Pittsburgh? Where is Minnesota, who's coming off a really disappointing season? These are, these blue blood names. Are they really that anymore? And, once upon a time, Wisconsin and Florida, a matchup that we get every single year at warm up, and one that I still look forward to, despite the fact that neither team has been in nationals in a while. That used to be like a can't miss game. And now it's like, okay, Wisconsin and Florida are playing. It's like a feel good game, but it's not, it doesn't have anywhere the meaning that it used to.
Chat. Someone in the chat asked, are we worried about the larger field diluting the quality of play? Maybe that's also something we're seeing at play here. I would love to see Texas against Georgia Tech in pool play. Maybe they're kind of just counting on the bracket, shaking some of this stuff out. But I'd love to see those teams, or Michigan. Like, those are teams that I kind of see all in the same tier, and I'd love to see them tested against one another. But that's not necessarily what we're going to get. I do think that once we get in the bracket, we'll start hashing out truly the elite teams. But pool play is going to be about finding the diamonds in the rough, or seeing which teams can prove it that are fringe teams. Maybe you're looking at somebody like Northeastern or Tufts out of New England, or you're looking at some of Maryland out of the AC, or maybe you're big on Chicago or Illinois out of the Great Lakes, or Will Wengel and Cincinnati finally breaking through. Maybe Brown is going to be resurgent this year. Maybe the D3 teams, OC, Middlebury, Ave Maria, Barry is in the field, I believe. Like, maybe there's a shot that one of those teams breaks through. Those I think are what you're going to find out more about during pool play. Wash U, another team that's had a lot of success lately, but they've had some big roster turnover. So what do they look like this year? Those are the questions that I'm asking as we get into the early portion of the tournament, and we'll save a lot of the UMass, Carleton, Texas, Georgia Tech for the bracket.
I'm excited to see Michigan. They do not have a cupcake schedule. They get Middlebury, BYU, Barry, Pittsburgh, and USF. Now, a couple wins in there for sure, but how do they pass the test with Pittsburgh, BYU, Middlebury? Like, Middlebury is not a pushover team. They're going to be really good this year. And so, can Michigan go 5-0 against this field? I think if we want to buy them as they can win the Great Lakes, they can do more than that, they can be a quarters or semis team in nationals, they probably need to show us something early. And I don't think that they have the ability to kind of just soft pedal the season the way they have in the past, because if Davenport goes D1, which it sounds like they're going to, they have to actually worry about getting to nationals. And that's not so common for Michigan. So I'm excited to see what they have. Phil Isev, great player now in his second season. Of course, Aaron Bartlett, who's going to be a top 3 player in the division. So let's see what Michigan's got in store for us.
I would put that Middlebury Michigan game on my list of the best 10 games.
I like
both a high quality game and just enough curiosity about this D3 D1 crossover. You ask the hypotheticals about how would the best teams in D3 do in D1. Like, we get a chance to try and actually put that to the test. Vermont, another team I'm interested to see where they're going to be at this year. They've had such good recruiting. Can that help stabilize the program even with the loss of talent that they've had? So Vermont gets WashU and Utah State. I would have both of those games on my list as intriguing. This Utah State team, also another team that part of that deep Northwest group. So they're going to give us some cross coast connectivity, I think, over the course of the year, and curious to see where they're going to be at. What other game so we've already got Georgia Tech BYU, Georgia Tech WashU, Vermont Utah State, Vermont WashU, UMass Pitt, Michigan Pitt, Middlebury Michigan, Texas BYU. So that gives us 8 games, I believe. Charlie, what else? We need 2 more. What are you picking?
Okay. How about McGill, Maryland? A little bit of a less obvious pick, I suppose, but McGill, they're on the move this year. They're going to be traveling to a bunch of tournaments this season. They've been a feisty team. And this Maryland team, it feels like there's always this promise. And, could this be the year that they break through in the AC? I think that this is like a great early tester game for 2 teams that are kind of like in the conversation of maybe being a bid earning team. And I'd like to see how they stack up in that one.
Yeah, I mean that Maryland team is one I'm really intrigued by. I mean, Isaac Lee and Miles Grovick is a great starting point. Not a lot of college teams have a duo of that caliber to rely on. It's going to be a question about what else they can get from the rest of the roster. I think they have rookie Kobe Stevens, who I've heard some good things about. Vincent Zong had some strong moments last season, so there's talent there. But can they deliver on that? Can they? How much can they rely on Lee and Grovick to carry the load for them?
It's going to be a great weekend to find out some more about that team. Anything else, Keith? You got one more?
There's some other games I'm curious about. Tufts in Chicago, Cincy Northeastern. I'm curious, like, is this Northeastern team really going to be able to push for nationals again? Is Cincy ever going to be? Every year, I feel like I get. This is the first year, maybe in a long time, I haven't had somebody hype up Cincy to me preseason. So maybe this is the time to buy. Maybe they're so locked in. I'm not even getting the hype DMs. Maybe that's the spot.
Well, who's on this Cincy team? Will Wettengel, which is a very good place to start. We got any other notable names on this team?
I don't think we have a full roster from them.
Jalal Lester is pretty good. I'm curious. They're the perennial. Maybe this is their year team. So
one of many.
Maybe this is their year. All right. Let's take a look at our streaming schedule for warm up. And we've got 2 games around coming your way all weekend long. We got Friday and Saturday match play games. Then we'll have quarterfinals for the men's division on Saturday night. Here's our Friday schedule. We've got Brown versus Illinois, Northeastern versus Cincinnati, Purdue taking on Texas, Texas A&M versus Georgia. Then later in the afternoon, Virginia Tech and Middlebury, Massachusetts and Minnesota, Vermont, Utah State, and Florida, Wisconsin. Let's take a look at Saturday's schedule. And we've got a couple of women's games on the radar for you. Florida and Purdue, Georgia Tech and Northwestern. And then on the men's side, Tufts Chicago, Michigan Pitt, Georgia Tech Wash U, FSU Barry, and then all 4 of the men's quarterfinals in the evening. Before we get to our Sunday schedule, which is 2 women's quarters, the men's semis, and then both finals. So, Keith, what are you looking forward to most?
Well, we kind of ran through some of our top matchups. So I'm going to be curious where the finals, obviously seeing if we're going to get like Carleton UMass in the men's division, and keeping an eye on what the women's division has to offer in this kind of new day for warm up. They did end up getting, there's some interesting teams to come down with the likes of Brown and Northwestern and Purdue. So some out of region flair. Can Florida live up to their early preseason ranking? Will they be the favorite in the Southeast? Can they get the better of these northern teams? Something to watch in the women's division as well.
You can watch Florida warm up with an Ultiworld standard or all access subscription. Just go to ultiworld.com/subscribe. Great time to sign up for an annual plan. Lock in for the whole year. We've got a great schedule coming your way, and you save some money as well. Warm up, always one of my favorites on the calendar every year. All right, Keith, before we go, it's time for our mailbag question of the week. What do we got?
All right, Charlie. This week's mailbag question of the week. How many D1 men's national teams? This says 2026, the question. How many 2026 D1 men's national teams would beat the 2026 Las Vegas Bighorns, the UFA team? But maybe we need to do 2025 since we have no idea who's going to be on the Bighorns. Are they even going to make it to the year? And we certainly don't know which men's nationals teams there are. So maybe we need to do 2025 here.
Oh my gosh. How many of the D1 nationals teams would they beat? I mean, they're not beating the top 5 teams.
Yeah.
This is a hard question to evaluate because we don't really get these kinds of matchups, but there is, like, even for a bottom fishing team like the Bighorns, like, there's still players who are in their 20s and 30s who are just physically better capable of, dealing with college teams. I think that they beat 8 of the teams at college nationals.
That's kind. I think I would take the quarterfinalists against them. So that pretty much cuts off a third of the field or whatever, 2/5 of the field. Literally 2/5 of the field, I guess. So I think you're probably getting down to like the 12, the 13 seeds where I've started to be like, okay, maybe the big courts are going to take this one. Is there any team that they would play where the best player would be on Vegas? I don't know if there is.
I don't know, Keith. Like, who are they the favorites against? Like, can you pick it? Like the bottom finishing teams at this year's D1 College Nationals in men's were Santa Cruz and Oregon State.
Yeah, I'm not favoring them against Oregon State. I don't think last year. Maybe Santa Cruz last year.
They're probably ahead of
not.
Ottawa, who finished 17th.
Yeah,
I don't know, Keith. It's tough ask. It's tough ask for them to get wins. There's not a lot of talent.
If you had some sort of play-in tournament to get to nationals, I'm not confident that they would make it. I'm not saying that they would definitely not, but I wouldn't be confident that they were going to make it.
I'm lowering my bid to 4 teams. I just, it's hard for me to see where the wins come from when I really think about the roster.
They feel like a fringe nationals team, which is probably what I would say about like the bottom 4 or 5 teams at nationals.
Yeah. There you go. All right. Hey, I almost forgot. We got to make our picks for warm up. So out of this, I mean, we have some obvious teams, I think. But you never know how the bracket's going to shake out because it comes down to algorithm and record. So where are you going, Keith? Are you going to take the heavy hitters in the finals?
Are we just doing finals or just finals?
You can pick semis. Sure if you want to pick semis or not. Pick semis. Let's do it. We got 40 teams.
Yeah, no shortage of teams to pick from. Okay, so I will. You can go ahead and pencil in Carleton and UMass. Penniman, whatever. Like I'm not expecting. I think they could go out there and play poorly and still make it to semis. After that, though, it starts to get harder. I think I'm going to take Texas and Georgia Tech. I think that I kind of made my stumping for them already. Maybe maybe I don't want all 4 of the chalky semi teams. I think there's going to be. I just feel like after this weekend there's going to be maximum Georgia Tech hype. So I'm taking Georgia Tech. I just don't know if I can buy a sleeper team from this field. Even the teams that I like to be good, I'm not sure that I can buy them over Texas or Michigan. All right, yeah, give me the chalk then. I think I'll take the top 4. I'll take Texas, Georgia Tech, Carleton, and UMass.
All right, well, I'm not going to overthink it for semis. I'm definitely taking Carleton and UMass. I think I got to take Georgia Tech. The question for me is really whether that last team.
After all you said, Michigan. You better.
I'm going to go with Michigan. Texas may be a little banged up right now, Keith. I'm not totally convinced. I feel like sometimes they show up at warm up and play awesome, and sometimes they really don't. And I don't know what we're going to get this year, but give me Michigan to make a surprise run to semis.
You're right about Texas's mixed record, but I don't know if the team you want to bet on to be a model of health is Michigan. When's the last time they played the regular season at full strength?
Well, it's a different year, Keith. Davenport lurking in the wings. I'm telling you, there's a different incentive.
Aaron Bartlett is coming off of college club U24s. He's got worlds ahead of.
Let him cook.
I don't know, man.
Let him cook.
He may be resting the hammies for this one.
We'll see. In the finals, Give me the chalk. I'm going to go Carleton UMass, and I'm going to go UMass to surprise Carleton early in the season and win this tournament.
Man, this feels so much like picking SBI in the women's division last week, where it was like, all right, well, we have two teams we think are better than everybody else. Which one of them do you think is going to win? Yeah, I'm taking them in the finals as well. And I guess I for posterity, I'll take Carleton, just so we're on the opposite ends of this. I don't feel strongly one way or the other, so I might as well differentiate us a little bit more, so we're not totally in lockstep. I really am still trying to think about, like, is there a team I can convince myself is also going to make semis besides the 5 that we talked about?
No.
I just don't see it yet.
All right. So you locking that in?
Yeah, let's roll with it.
All right.
Is there anybody you want to hype up before that? Is there anybody down the line you're like, I think this team's going to surprise people?
Sneaky run?
Yeah, give me one of these fringe teams that you like.
Well, are they fringe? I'm calling for a Minnesota bounce back. Are they fringe? I don't think they're quite fringe. Who else do I like? I'm kind of curious. I feel like a Southeast team besides Georgia Tech is going to do something interesting this weekend. Is Tulane kind of good? I'll give them the hype.
I saw a little Tulane buzz. I think
Tulane could make a splash.
We've seen them have up years. I know they've got Michael Wagner, who is going in his second year. He's pretty good. So we'll see what else they can bring to the table. I think I'm gonna regret this. I'm gonna take Maryland. Oh man, taking an AC.
Oh my god! Every year, here we go.
Every year.
Tale as old as time. Keith jumping on the Maryland bandwagon early in the
season.
Not
Maryland specifically, but
how many times have you been burned, Keith?
So many AC teams. The other team, I can't understand how a team can have Eli Artemikis and Nate Astrom and not like beat other college teams. So Illinois is the other team I'm keeping my eye on, but give me Maryland as my
Maryland.
I said sleeper.
Classic.
This won't come back to bite me at all.
People saying in the chat, Tulane. Well, people. Anthony saying in the chat that Tulane is real this year. At the disc says Tennessee. Firing it up for Tennessee. Okay. Utah State versus Tennessee, low key interesting. Okay. All right. That'll be a good shot called if it comes to pass. That's an interesting game, but I'm not ready to fire it up for Tennessee. All right. We will break down all of warm-up next week when we see you on the show. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. For Keith, I'm Charlie saying so long from this week's Deep Look. Don't miss us in Discord with our live segment, Out the Back. It happens every week following Deep Look, only for subscribers. College team packs are on sale now. Save money until mid-February. Get college ultimate video for your entire team and coaching staff. And a whole lot more, including subscriptions for everybody on your team for one low price. Check it out at College Team Packs on UltiWorld. See you, everybody.